Hello, I'm your combatant Vaziri, and today I have for you the town battle from Golf Wars 2023. Let's review the rules of the scenario quickly. This battle was decided by points. Points were earned for controlling buildings at roughly 15-minute intervals when the marshals check for control. There were 6 buildings, 1 in the castle and 5 in the field outside of the castle. There are unlimited lives and resurrections. One team starts in the field and the other in the castle. You have to walk back to where you started to come back to life. The battle was fought twice with the teams switching sides. I'm fighting for Trimaris. My team has blue stickers on their helmets, and we're against Ansteorra with yellow stickers. You can see we're about to walk past a rope on the ground to our right. That demarks the area which is the river, the moat. If you walk into that, you die automatically, unless you are a member of the chivalry, in which case you're assumed to have a horse and you can walk through and fight in the moat without any issues. There were also some restrictions, or maybe there weren't restrictions, about what weapons you could use. In camp we were told you couldn't use a weapon over 6 feet, so a bunch of people actually cut their weapons down. But when we arrived, I was told chivalry could use any weapon they wanted and others were restricted. And then when the fighting actually started, I don't know that anybody actually knew what the rule was. Maybe 10 seconds ago I walked past a rectangular set of railings to my left. That was one of the first buildings outside of the castle. And now I'm kind of in an area around this tree, which is between that building and the moat. And I'm not quite sure where to stand because our general was just very clear with us, 10 seconds before this battle started. The people in the Meridian Army, I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, I'm fighting with Meridiers. Our job is to hold that one building I walked past and to hold the moat. And we don't get any additional points for going out there and spreading our lines thin and having a bunch of people get tired. So we're just going to be playing it really safe. As long as we're holding the bridge in front of the moat and we're holding that building, we'll kind of take a minimal amount of risk. That being said, this line actually immediately spread out. It's now much ahead of the one building we needed to protect. And I can't really critique us because the battle was going pretty well. Our spearmen were having a field day and the shield wall was there just as insurance in case they needed to retreat behind us. Now that we know the rules and the basic orders we were given, I'm going to start editing this video as a highlight reel. I've left the time in the bottom right corner so you can see how much time I'm skipping in between anything that I think is worth talking about. Skipping forward a few minutes here, things were going well enough that we continued to push forward and our commanders had to remind us to step back and retreat a little bit. And despite that, our lines have kind of separated. There's now the shield line that I'm part of and an additional kind of scraggly line in front of us. And at that moment, Ansteorra gets enough people together to do a cohesive charge for the first time. When the dust settles, basically everybody who was in front of me died, so I'm now actually on the front line. But again, over the next couple minutes, we get into a situation where 2 lines form. At this point, people start to yell that they need reinforcements on the far left side, and it's only then that I become aware we've actually spread out to fill the entire space we have available. So rather than stay near our objectives, our line goes all the way from the bridge to the edge of where the spectators are allowed to sit. And I think because of that, the commanders start to call for us to fall back and to collapse into one line. So spearmen start to walk back behind me. Eventually, Ansteorra fights their way until our lines are touching. Unfortunately, there's nobody with a spear or glaive anywhere near my part of the line, and so the other side is attacking more or less with impunity. And I would not recommend what I'm doing here. I'm kind of ineffectually swatting at the glaive on the other side, and that's opening up my guard. At some point, he takes a swing at my head, and the first blow glances or barely touches me, and then he tries to pull back and cut with the short side of the polearm. It looks like it was actually flat, but I can't really see it. It's above my head, so I call it good and go to respawn. I'm going to show this first respawn just to give a sense of how far it is, but after this I'll cut it out. There's a hold here for about a minute. I'll skip to the first notable thing post-hold. Since Rick is left-handed, we switch places so we don't get tangled. Ansteorra charges, but I'm looking to my left, and I completely ignore this person to my right in red, who's actually breaking through our line, because I don't see any tape on the back of his helmet, and I'm not very used to being in melees. They were almost able to get the momentum from this vertical chop into a horizontal slash with the short of their blade, but I guess I just didn't feel it, because I didn't take the shot. Fast forwarding a little bit here, we do our first charge, and after the immediate person in front of me is dead, I kind of lose track of where I should be in this group of people. That charge is successful, and they're broken up long enough that we advanced all the way to the next building, beyond the one that we were meant to capture. Pay attention to the person with the round shield just in front of me and to the right, with the red hood and the blue shirt. They turn away and get blindsided by a person who's charging with their shield blinding themselves. And the guy with the giant hammer nails me in the camera rig. I come back, it's a standoff between the lines for a little bit, but my shield arm is getting super tired, and actually in hindsight, talking to people who are more experienced, it's not that my arm's tired, it's that the ligament in my elbow has been strained. Credit to the person behind me in red, they braced me so well on this charge I barely move, and after exchanging some blows, somebody with a glaive gets a good one in on my head. After I res here, I take the time to go to the sideline, get water, and change to a new weapon because my left arm's so beat. Before I do all that, I get some great footage of this tree. I'm back now and I have a 6-foot slashing spear. It was actually made to be a legal javelin, so it weighs less than 2 pounds, and if it had the appropriate amount of padding, I would be able to throw it. But it is pretty short compared to people who have 9-foot spears, so mostly I'm just trying to harass and poke them and keep them on their guard. Not much happens until a hold is called just as Ansteorra charges, and we resume in the middle of resolving that charge. I attack one person over and over, and I don't realize, but actually the person directly in front of me is on the enemy team, and they're blinding themselves with their shield, and they're actually saving my life. Their own spearmen can't kill me because their shield is in the way. Right after this, they called a hold, and they announced that there'd be a break before we switch sides. And overall, in the first half, it looked promising for our team. We had held the things we were supposed to hold 100% of the time, and we even captured one additional objective on our side of the field. I was way off on the wrong side of the field when the fighting started, so I had to go back and resurrect and just join the battle wherever I could, and hopefully meet up with the Meridian Army once I got my bearings. Skipping forward a little here, I get taken out by a spearman and return to res and go to a different part of the battle since I didn't see any Meridian people where I was. I arrived just as they charged, but I wasn't expecting it, and I fail to follow them into the gap they make. I do hit one person and generally become confused about who's on what team. The spearman hits me, but it's either glancing or it hits my hand. I'm not quite sure, but I indicate to him that that wasn't good. I'm having trouble figuring out what niche a 6-foot spear fills in this scenario, and I'm playing around with trying to defend this window when we take a charge. I get hit in the hand by an enemy combatant and in my helmet by a friendly combatant, and I'm not sure what I was thinking, but I end up just taking it. Okay, I'm going to go on a little tangent here, but it will make sense in a minute or two. So I'm always curious to try things that involve making something. I like making things. And one of the things in the rulebook that I have seen in the rules, but never in person, are effective throwing weapons. So I made the spear that I'm holding. Like I said, this is under 2 pounds. That would allow it to be thrown. But when I went to get my weapons inspected, there actually wasn't even tape designated to say that this weapon passed as a melee weapon or this passed as a thrown weapon. When I went to the first battle, the archery battle, again, they weren't really prepared for thrown weapons. They ended up making a judgment call on the spot and banning them, even though that scenario said that they were allowed. So in general, I think thrown weapons kind of fall through the cracks at the administrative level of setting up some of these scenarios. And I had been remarking on this very topic the previous day with Duke Lachlan, and he happened to be standing next to me when I noticed something on the ground that looked like it might be a javelin. It had a padded tip, it wasn't primarily yellow. It's good that I got an audience to witness that before throwing it. You gotta give it to the guy with the huge hammer for spirit, charging in with no defense, taking a big wind-up swing. Unfortunately, he smacks one of his own teammates on the backswing pretty hard, and it seems like he's not quite noticing when the spearmen are trying to be nice. I'm going to skip forward to this next charge. I let the first person glide off of me and get killed by the people standing behind me. I go to swing at a two-handed swordsman, and just at that moment, he hits a friendly person's sword arm into my helmet. I hit the swordsman with the haft of my weapon, which shouldn't count. I try to follow up, but he blocks it. I try to follow up again, but it seems to glide off of his gauntlets, and he connects with a good chop to my shoulder. I leave, resurrect, take off my gauntlets, tie my shoe, come back, stand in this kind of no man's land where I'm not a spear, so I shouldn't be in the front, and I'm not a shield, so I should get out of the way.
Maintain open order, let the spears work, but have a second shield in place to receive a charge. Big shields to the front. Open order, let the spears work, but have a second shield in case they charge. Give those spears room. Give the spears.
Skipping forward, I think this next clip is my biggest contribution to this part of the battle.
Okay, guard, somebody's coming. Guard, shield up there. Oh, nice.
Before we skip to the final charge of the battle, I would say overall, I felt like in the half where my left arm was well enough to carry a shield, I was happy with where I was standing. I felt like I was in the right place for where our commanders needed us. And in the second half, I did the best I could with what I had. But yeah, would love to have a spear next time, and would love to make a shield which you can support on either your shin guard or more ergonomically kind of tuck your arm, not leave it strained constantly. The final Ansteorra charge is led by Hammer Bro, and he's only followed by one person. And I think right after that, the whole Meridian line realizes that there are much fewer people than there used to be, and charge in unison. We got locked up to the point that I couldn't really swing, and I start to grab at people's weapons. I think in my mind I was thinking these are spears and I'll grab the haft, but they were swords, and so I wouldn't be allowed to do that. So I would have taken a death and walked off at this point, but the hold that ended this cluster was actually the last hold of the battle, so this was it. Thanks again for watching. Always appreciate if you could subscribe and share this with people who might enjoy it. Please leave a comment with any advice you have, any cool things you saw that I missed, or any requests for ways I might do this differently in the future. If you're interested in trying SCA combat, or really any part of pre-17th century life, you can learn more at welcome.sca.org. There you'll find information about all things SCA, including which kingdom operates in your local area. If you're specifically interested to do what you saw in this video, you can check out some unofficial Facebook groups for melee combat or combat archery. I hope to see you at an event someday, and thank you for watching.